Porsche's first pure electric sports car is here, the Porsche Taycan, and their first customers are actually starting to receive delivery. But the internet has been abuzz with all kinds of comments, everything from, wow, the fastest Porsche ever, to the Porsche Taycan is the least efficient EV ever. And today I thought I would dig in further, get into the numbers, and figure out what exactly is going on. We want to provide more context and a better lens through which to make comparisons to the Taycan and to really assess exactly what it means and what it is that they've accomplished here. But first, I have a special guest today. This is the other half of Tibet Da Vinci.
That's me, I'm Chris, and I've been busy for the last several months working to build up our other YouTube channel, 2-Bit History, where we take a look at companies and people in a historical context. We just dropped one on Pepsi, and we have one on Southwest Airlines, Harley Davidson, and a bunch of other topics. So take a look at it, we'll link it above, and we would love for you to support us over there.
All right, thank you, Chris. Okay, so the Porsche Taycan is Porsche's new sports car. It is a pure electric, and that alone should be enough for us to say, bravo Porsche, good job. Because this was a car I wasn't sure they would make a couple of years ago. Porsche is a legendary nameplate. Porsche is iconic, and the 911 is one of those cars you don't mess with. When Porsche tried messing with their headlight design in the early 2000s, the amount of backlash they received was so severe that they immediately went back to the rounded off headlights the very next generation. So this is a car that's really important to Porsche and also an incredibly important stepping stone into the future of the electric vehicle. Because if Porsche can make a crazy fast 700 plus horsepower pure electric car, then what's really left to complain about? So that all sounds great. And again, bravo Porsche. I'm so glad you made this car. If you ever want me to have a drive at it and to review it, let us know. I'd be happy to do that. But the controversy begins because the Porsche Taycan is also the least efficient EV that money can buy, here in the US anyway. Of all the EVs that are out in the market that you can buy, the Porsche Taycan is the worst. In fact, its EPA ratings are only around 68 miles per gallon equivalent in the city and 71 on the highway. So what that means is that with its 93.4 kilowatt hour battery pack, it's only able to muster about 201 miles of range. And that's for the Taycan Turbo. The Taycan Turbo S, the faster variant, dips even further to about 192 miles. So this is the controversy part. And all the Tesla fans will point and say, you see how far behind they are and where Tesla is. I think this is entirely true. I think what this car shows us is what everyone's been telling us, that as soon as the real big boys jump into the EV scene, that they're going to run away with it. And I think the Taycan is one of the first data points where we can look at it and say, that's just not true. Tesla is 10 years ahead. They've been doing this for a long time. And clearly the Taycan has a lot of room to improve and to catch up. But I'll get more into how to think about that in a second. But what I wanted to do today is dig into this further and to figure out if we can't see where some of these inefficiencies are coming from and where the disparity with Tesla and the Tesla Model S in particular comes from. So first and foremost, I want to compare this car to the Tesla Model S. And the reason why is because I believe whenever car companies enter a new segment, Porsche has clearly entered a new segment. What the engineers and designers are going to do is they're going to put a car on the wall that is their target. So for example, for many, many years, anybody who was building a four-door sports sedan had the BMW 3 Series on the wall. That was the target. And the engineer's job was make a car that can compete with this one. So when the engineers at Porsche were building the Taycan, was the Tesla Model S the target to beat? Well, let's look into that. The closest sibling to the Taycan in the Porsche stable is the Porsche Panamera, a car that I've always disliked. I've always thought it was ugly, and I think what they tried to do was capture that 911 enthusiast who wanted four doors, maybe for kids in the back, and those proportions just didn't translate. They didn't scale up very nicely. So let's compare the Taycan to the Model S and to the Panamera and see which one it more closely resembles. So the length of the Taycan is 195.4 inches. The length of the Model S is 195.9 inches, just half an inch difference. Whereas the Panamera is 199 inches, 4 inches longer. The width of the Taycan is 77.4 inches, the Model S is 77.3 inches, and the Panamera is 76.3 inches, about an inch shorter. The height is 54.5 inches for the Taycan, 56.5 inches for the Model S, and 56 inches for the Panamera. It's pretty clear to me that the Model S was the target. The dimensions here of the Taycan are almost identical to the Model S, and quite a bit of a departure from the Panamera. So clearly, I think when they were building the battery, skateboard, and chassis, and the drivetrain, and laying out the electric componentry, I think they realized what Tesla was onto and pretty much mimicked the size of the Model S down to a T. The curb weight of the different cars are all pretty close. 5132 pounds for the Taycan, between 45 and 5,000 pounds for the Model S, and 5270 for the Panamera. Here's the interesting point. The Taycan with all those batteries is still lighter than the Panamera, which is an amazing feat of engineering. I don't know how they did that. The Panamera is a bigger car, but still that's pretty impressive. Let's continue this comparison further to see how the Taycan stacks up here. If we look at the drag coefficient, the Taycan Turbo has a value of 0.22. The Taycan Turbo S has a value of 0.25. I think the higher value here for the Taycan Turbo S is due to increased aero packages for greater downforce at higher speeds, because the Taycan Turbo S does have more power and top speed. And the Model S here is 0.23. These are all wickedly good, by the way, because the Panamera, which is a really svelte, very aerodynamic car, but it does have a big radiator to cool that gasoline engine, has a value of 0.28. So here the Taycan can't be faulted for having bad aero, because this aero drag coefficient is actually as good or better than the Model S in the turbo package, and a little bit worse in the Turbo S package, but it's right there in that realm. So clearly the aerodynamics aren't the problem here. The next direct comparison, I think, is price. And I can assure you that Porsche was not targeting Tesla on price, because they don't need to. Porsche is a premium company. They don't make mass market cars. They make really high-end exotic cars that sell in a much lower volume, but at a higher margin. So here, the comparison is almost unbelievable, because the Taycan Turbo starts at $150,900. The Taycan Turbo S is a whopping $185,000. And this is where the Model S comes in as the bargain of a lifetime at only $99,900. So between $50,000 and $85,000 cheaper than the Taycan Turbo. And oh, by the way, that was for the performance Model S with ludicrous mode, the P100D. So, yeah, that price is pretty killer. And just for comparison's sake, I also threw my performance Model 3 into the mix. I just took delivery yesterday. I've been really busy and a little sick, but videos are coming, I assure you. But my performance Model 3, which is crazy fast and about 1,000 pounds lighter, is only $56,900. So the Taycan is not a cheap car. Both cars have all-wheel drive dual motor layouts, and the Taycan Turbo has a 670 horsepower total max output, while the Taycan Turbo S is closer to 750, and the Model S from Tesla is around 760. So the Model S ludicrous P100D is pretty comparable to the Taycan Turbo S. And the 0 to 60 times are also pretty close. 3 seconds for the Taycan Turbo, 2.6 for the Turbo S, and 2.4 for the Model S. It's actually a little bit faster, which is interesting. And my economy choice here, Model 3 performance, is 2.9 seconds. Pretty great. Again, the big discrepancy here is in the MPGe figure. So the Taycan, again, is 6871, while the Model S is 9896. That's what we need to dig into a little bit more and figure out what's going on, because the battery packs are all pretty comparable. The battery pack for the Taycan is 93.4 kilowatt hours, and the Tesla is 100. And from those batteries, the range is 200 for the Taycan, 192 for the Taycan Turbo S, while the Model S performance gets 326, which is substantially and significantly better. So let's start right away with some disclaimers about the Porsche that aren't really made clear, and I don't think I've seen anybody else mention it yet. But the Taycan has a couple of things working against it. The first is that 12% of the battery is not addressable, meaning that when you charge it and discharge it, 12% of the battery is held away from you and you can never use it. This was a choice that Porsche made to protect their battery pack, to be able to help them better serve their customers and to maintain their warranty. In comparison, Tesla doesn't do this. Tesla recommends that you keep your battery between these ranges, but in a pinch, if you want to go on a long road trip, you could charge your battery to 100% and you can discharge it to 0%. They don't stop you. So if we do a little bit of math, 1.12, which is 12%, times 201, its current range, that means that if the entire Porsche battery was addressable, that would be 225 miles of range. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing has to do with regenerative braking. To better understand MPGE and regenerative braking and how all this stuff factors in, let's do a quick little math lesson, and I promise I'll keep this pretty short. 1 gallon of gasoline has the equivalent of 33.7 kilowatt hours of energy. So 1 gallon of gasoline, 33.7 kilowatt hours of energy. What that means is that a Tesla Model 3 Performance with a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack is holding the equivalent of about 2.23 gallons of gasoline. 300 miles of range from just 2.23 gallons of gas. That is why electric vehicles are so efficient. And if anyone ever tells you that they're coal-powered cars and stuff, just stop them right there and tell them, look, whatever source fuels them, they're like 3 times as efficient with the energy that they use. So if we do the math really quickly, my Model 3 Performance has an MPGE of 110. So 2.23, which is the equivalent number of gallons of gasoline that I'd have, times 110 puts me to about 245 or 250 miles. But my rated range is closer to 300 to 310. So where is that last 50 miles? And did they make a mistake? Well, it turns out that last 50 miles is actually regenerative braking. So the reason why most electric vehicles and hybrids have a higher city number than a highway number is because as you're in stop and go traffic, you go a little bit and you stop and you'll regenerate, and as a result, the lower speeds of city driving plus regenerative braking means you'll have better efficiency in the city. So for example, my Model 3 in the city will go 118 miles per gallon equivalent, while in the highway only go 107 miles per gallon equivalent. So this should be your first sign of what's going on with the Taycan, because the Taycan has a MPG in the city of 68, but 71 on the highway, meaning their highway MPG is better. If you ever see an electric car with better highway ratings than city ratings, that means that the regenerative braking numbers and performance is not that great. And in the case of the Taycan, it's not that great, not exactly because they didn't know what they were doing, but because of their main challenge when building this car. The Porsche Taycan is made for people who like gasoline cars. The Porsche Taycan is made for Porsche buyers who have maybe owned 2 or 3 Porsches in their life. This is a car that is built for people who are not maybe in the EV crowd, who aren't really looking for EVs. If you're looking for an EV, chances are you'll take the Model S, which is cooler and probably has more EV street cred, for about half the money. You buy the Porsche because you're a Porsche fan. Maybe you have a Porsche jacket and clothing and polo shirts, right? You buy Porsche because you love Porsche. So as a result, Porsche has had to build this car to cater to that. Where Elon and Tesla have said, I want nothing to do with your gasoline car. When you buy a Tesla, get over it. You're an electric car. We're not going to funnel in fake noises to give you reassurance of what's going on. We're not going to give you a fake tachometer or put gauges in front of you. There's none of that stuff. We have a clean, brand new paradigm, and you have to get used to it. In comparison, Porsche is going the other way. They are really hand-holding their customers who like gasoline cars, because there's a mode in the Taycan to bring in audio sounds. Now, it's not quite like a gasoline engine sound, but it boosts all the levels of the EV's electric motors, and it makes it sound like there's more happening. It's fake noise that gives the user a sense of something happening. For anyone who's driven a Tesla or an electric vehicle, you know it's a weird sensation to go so quickly and so fast without the guttural noises that we've been associating with going fast for so long. So people who are looking for that are the people that Porsche wants to capture. Now, adding fake noises to the cockpit isn't why their regenerative braking isn't very good. The reason why their regen is not very good is the second part. The Porsche is a sports car in every sense. It was first and foremost a sports car. The 911 was always the same way. Sure, you could drive it to and from work like almost every 911 driver would do, but that didn't mean that it wasn't made for the track. And the Taycan is the same way. The argument that I read from Porsche when they were building the car is that they wanted to have incredibly predictable pedal feel no matter what was happening in the car. In a Tesla, if it's cold outside and the batteries aren't warmed up, the regen braking is actually going to be reduced until the battery pack is warm. So what does that mean? Well, when you let off the accelerator pedal and you have the regen braking turned on, the level of regenerative braking is not going to be as much as it will 15 or 20 minutes from now when the battery pack warms up. If you're commuting and stop and go driving, that might not be a big deal. But if you're a race car driver around a track, you have to know what the pedals are going to do, and you can't live with any level of change. When you push the throttle to this percent, the car should do exactly this. When I hit the brake to this percent, the car should do exactly that. So what Porsche has done is they pretty much don't have any regen in the accelerator. When you let go of the accelerator pedal, the car just coasts just like you're used to in a gasoline car. And when you hit the brake pedal, then there is a mixture of regenerative braking plus the carbon ceramic disc brakes that they have on the car. But what Porsche claims here is that no matter what, if the car is cold or hot or whatever the case might be, that the regen levels are always going to be the same. They're not going to change. So what that tells me is the regen level is only going to be 45%. The rest will be the normal brake pedal feel. With Tesla, the settings are low or aggressive. Low regen and aggressive. I like the aggressive feel because you get that one pedal driving. On the Porsche, it's off or normal. And my belief is that the normal is probably closer to Tesla's low, and Tesla has the aggressive mode beyond that. So now we have 50 miles of range that we've just figured out where it went. 25 or so from the fact that 12% of the battery is not addressable, and another 25 or 30 miles is lost to the fact that the regenerative braking is more tailored toward predictability than for pure regenerative braking and performance. The next thing that is different between the Taycan and the Model S is the fact that the Taycan has a 2-speed transmission for the rear motor. The Tesla Model S, X, and 3 all have a single fixed speed gearbox for both motors if they're all-wheel drive, or one motor if it's a rear-wheel drive. Tesla doesn't have any 2-speed type transmissions, and the Taycan does. The rear engine has a 2-speed, one that's more primed for launches and lower speeds, and then the car automatically shifts to second gear around 60 miles an hour for the higher speed end of the spectrum. This is what gives the Porsche the great performance in higher speeds and longer races like the quarter half mile or a full mile drag race compared to the Tesla, because the Tesla has a single speed gearbox. I believe that there's going to be some losses from that as well. The fact that you have either some sort of a dual clutch or automatic hydraulic slush box, however they're doing it, I'm not exactly sure. If you know, leave us a comment. But however they're doing it, I believe there might be some efficiency losses there. Not much, maybe 5 miles of range potentially or so, something like that. So add that all up, and now we're looking at around 60 miles of range that's missing. So 200 plus 60, we're still left with about 60 miles of missing range from what Tesla is able to achieve. And that's where I think is Tesla's advantage. Tesla has made a lot of breakthroughs in terms of efficiency. Their MPGe ratings have increased over the years because they're getting better digital motor controls, and they're making like low-level, firmware level controller logic improvements to make their cars more efficient. And this is where that 10-year head start really shows. So if you're a Tesla fan and you're looking for like a reason to say, you see, Porsche is behind, you're right. I do believe Porsche is behind. And to compare the Taycan to a 2020 Tesla Model S P100D Ludicrous, it's not fair to Porsche, and it's kind of insulting to Tesla. So if we compare the Taycan to the Tesla Roadster, the original one, or the Model S from 2012, I think we then have a better comparison to draw. I don't think it's even fair to compare the Taycan to the 2020 Model S, because clearly the Model S is way more efficient. I think their subsystems and drive controls and everything else is way more advanced than what Porsche has. One thing that Porsche owners have said is who cares about the range, right? If you're rich, you don't really care about paying more for energy prices. A Porsche 911 might only get 15 miles a gallon compared to a more economic car that gets 30. But the Porsche owner doesn't care because they'll happily pay for it. So while that might hold true for the gas car, in the EV world, range and efficiency aren't just luxuries that wealthy people don't have to worry about. The reason why is even if we had the entire battery for the Taycan available, that would give us about 225 miles of range. So if we kept the Taycan's battery always above 20% and always below 80% fully charged, that would drop that range from 225 to 135. In comparison, the Model S, if we did the same exact thing, would have a usable range of about 196 miles. But what's also interesting is that the Porsche Taycan, the Turbo S, would have to be charged about 8 times a month, right? Compared to only 5 times for the Model S. If we extrapolate out 3 years, because I think the Taycan's gonna have a lot of 3-year leases on it, that would be 280 times for the Taycan Turbo S and only 184 times for the Model S. And if you look at 5 years, it would be 465 times versus 300 times. Roughly a 35% decrease. So what that means is that your battery pack is undergoing less charge cycles. If you had a car that you charged every night versus a car with a huge battery pack that you could only have to charge once a week, that car would last longer because each of these battery packs has a certain number of charge cycles in it. Now, clearly, even at 465 charges for 5 years, the Porsche is going to be fine. It has easily another 5 or 10 years of driving left in it. But this shows you how important that range number is. So anyone who says, who cares, I'm wealthy, I don't have to worry about range, I think you're wrong for this reason. And the second reason is just convenience. The first time a Taycan owner goes on a long road trip, they're going to come across a moment when they wish they had 100 more miles of range, like the Model S would have. Because invariably, you're going to be in a place where you're just far enough away from a charge station, or you have to sit and wait, or some other thing that will make you realize, man, another 100 miles of range would have just been perfect. So yeah, I think the range and efficiency does matter, but it doesn't mean that people aren't going to buy the Taycan. I bet you they will sell them. So let's wrap this up and talk about my conclusions. I do believe that Porsche is not as efficient as the Tesla. I think that's going to be pretty clear to people. I hope I've given you reasons for why I believe that is and kind of shown you where some of that lost range is going. But before we bash Porsche too much, I hope we can remember that the Porsche nameplate goes back decades and it has a racing pedigree that is second to very few. And Porsche owners are diehard and rabid. And I'm really curious, if you are a Porsche owner, can you please leave us your comments? Let us know what you think. Would you consider buying or leasing a Taycan? Is it a car that has you excited, or are you thinking, I hate it and I want to go back to a gas 911 as soon as possible? Let us know. I'm really curious to know. Because I do believe Porsche has a long road ahead. They have the unenviable task of replacing a product that they already used to make that was pretty great. This is a task that Tesla never had to worry about. Tesla was not replacing sales of their existing models. They were a brand new player with brand new models, and they were not eating into or cannibalizing their previous sales. Porsche will be. So it's no secret or no mistake that Porsche is really trying to win over the gas engine fans. Because, I mean, look at the names. The Taycan Turbo S, a turbocharger, has no meaning in electric vehicles. The naming is stupid. I actually don't like it, and I think they should change it, because if you know what gasoline engines are, then you find the name stupid and insulting. And if you don't, then what do you care about turbos anyway? I don't think it accomplishes anything. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know as well. I think it's a bizarre choice, but it shows you that they're trying their best. It's like the Ford Mustang Mach-E. I think they realize the challenge and they need to bring their A game. The styling is very attractive. I think it's as attractive or more attractive than the Panamera or anything else that they've made in that longer range styling. And I think people who like the 911 are going to genuinely like this car. I think the interior and the layout is really nice, and it has some features that are more pro and more race focused. I think that there will be a upgrade to a plaid mode Model S coming out in 2020, maybe mid or late 2020, that will be more comparable to this directly in terms of performance, but the Porsche's got some really incredible stuff. The Porsche has active roll bars, which are pretty cool. If you guys are curious what those are, I can make a video about it. It has 4-wheel steering and torque. It has all kinds of really advanced technologies. And these are things that will probably make it to Teslas in the near future. But what Porsche has done is pretty amazing, and it shouldn't be written off as some kind of wannabe or a poser. It is a proper EV, and I am so glad they made it, because here's Porsche, a legend in the gasoline engine space, building EVs. There is really no reason why any other company shouldn't be joining them now, because it is a epic car. I hope them well, and I hope they sell. Me personally, I will stick with my Tesla. I don't have $180,000 laying around, but I think they're going to sell and do pretty well. Will they have over-the-air updates? Will they have any self-driving? No, they're not going to. And that does it for me. I hope that kind of helps us better judge or provide context. Leave us your comments as always. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, share this video. Do me a favor and reach out to us on Twitter. I'd love to have more followers on Twitter. I think there's a lot of room for me to engage more with you guys that doesn't involve making videos, and I'm going to do it all on Twitter. So thank you so much. I will be making more videos before the new year, so stay tuned. My Model 3 has arrived. I'll make videos about all of that stuff coming up. Thank you so much again for watching. I'm Ricky, and this is 2-Bit Da Vinci.